Jinwoo, the weakest hunter in the world, miraculously survives a monster attack in a high-level dungeon and receives a unique system that enhances his abilities. Determined to uncover the mysteries of this power, he embarks on a journey full of emotions, strength, and revelations. Welcome to Turbo Nerd. The name of the anime and the summary of each episode can be found in the video description. Jinwoo is a typical weakling. Okay, jokes aside, he is a pitiful and despicable debtor who has nothing in life. His father went out to buy milk and his mother is in a coma, so he becomes a useless bankrupt who needs to feed his younger sister with his E-class hunter skills. 10 years ago, giant gates appeared all over the planet, releasing monsters to decimate the population. People had no chance to fight back as weapons were ineffective. But suddenly, some people awakened special abilities. These people are known as hunters and are classified according to their magical power in levels from E to S. In the following years, people managed to survive with these new abilities, but they still needed to clear the dungeons that appeared. If they didn't, the dungeon would accumulate magic, open up, and release monsters back into the world. 3 years ago, this happened on a nearby island when an S-level dungeon wasn't cleared, and monsters took over the island. The hunters tried to clear it, but the ants were too strong. We see several men at a construction site. One of them, named Kim, is getting a coffee. When the vendor wishes him good luck for the Kuji raid, another man named Park calls Kim and asks him what he's doing there, since he had stopped being a hunter. Park explains that his wife is pregnant, and he needs to earn some money. Kim responds that there's nothing better than a good raid to make money, right? Park is worried because his skills were already bad, and he believes they've gotten even worse since he hasn't hunted in a long time. Suddenly, everyone pays attention to Jinwoo, who has just arrived at the site. Kim greets Jinwoo and asks if he has eaten. Jinwoo confirms and moves on. Park, curious, asks if Jinwoo is a strong hunter because everyone seems happy to see him. Kim laughs when he realizes that Park left before Jinwoo did his first raid, who reveals that Jinwoo has a special nickname, the weakest hunter of all. Park is confused, expecting something like the strongest. Kim explains that Jinwoo is a class hunter and that he always gets injured even in class gates, which is why people call him the weakest hunter. Kim, however, thinks that this dungeon will be easy to conquer, since Jinwoo is there. Kim tells Park to stop talking about it because Jinwoo might hear. However, Jinwoo, while walking, sighs because he can hear everything. He hears a familiar voice saying that he heard it again. He realizes it's Juhi and greets her, saying it's good to see her again. She asks what happened to his face, right? But he replies that something happened. She asks again what happened and he decides to tell the story. She finds out that he ended up in the hospital and was the only one injured, even after entering an E-class dungeon. She is confused, but he explains that everyone else was high level and didn't bring a healer with them. She complains about it, thinking that everyone was overly confident and that no one would get hurt. But Jinwoo admits that it's his fault for being weak, although he's already used to getting hurt. He realizes it's time to start the raid and tells her to go. They meet Song, an experienced hunter, who asks if they agree with him taking command and leading the group, as he is the highest level. Everyone agrees. When everyone is ready, they open the gate and enter the dungeon. Upon entering, Kim tells Jinwoo to stay close, so he doesn't get hurt. Jinwoo pulls out his knife, and mentions that it's the only equipment he can afford, but even so, he will give his best today, as he enters the dungeon. Meanwhile, Go, the president of the Hunters Association, tells his assistant that he met with the government, which asked them to avoid dungeon outbreaks. However, they demanded that the items acquired in the dungeons be handed over. Go doesn't find this demand intolerable, since they make money by reselling items from the dungeons, which are magical cores obtained by killing monsters. In the dungeon, we see Jinwoo, bloodied, with the magical core in his hand. He is happy for having defeated a weak goblin, but Juhi warns him to be careful. A goblin attacks him, but he manages to defend against the attack. The goblin continues to attack, but he dodges all the blows. He finds an opportunity to attack and tries to cut the goblin, but his blade breaks upon touching it. The goblin wastes no time and stabs him. Juhi is worried about him, but Park arrives and defeats the goblin. Jinwoo pulls the blade from his abdomen and lies on the ground, losing blood. Park asks Juhi to heal him while he defeats the nearby monsters. Juhi runs to help Jinwoo and uses her healing powers. While being healed, Jinwoo watches the others easily defeating the monsters and feels envious. President Go explains that high-level monster magic cores can be used to craft more powerful weapons. This allows hunters to defeat stronger monsters. He mentions that they can obtain high-quality cores from dungeons and craft weapons with them, but the quality of these weapons is not as good as high-class ones. His assistant doesn't understand why the government wants the cores. Go explains that the government wants to create a new energy source, safer than nuclear energy, and more efficient than conventional energy sources. This would reduce pollution and create truly clean energy, but they could only generate this energy if the hunters cleared the dungeons. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo is healed and the group manages to defeat the boss. Juhi heals him again and asks why he wants so much to be a hunter. She says that he will get into big trouble if he continues doing the same thing. Jinwoo apologizes, but Juhi complains, saying she doesn't want apologies, she just worries about him. Song tells everyone that the raid is almost over, and everyone starts talking about their earnings. Jinwoo looks at his magic core and feels sorry for himself. He risked his life for a miserable reward. Suddenly, another man shouts that he found another dungeon. Everyone is confused, but Song explains that sometimes there are double dungeons. Some find it strange, but most think that the rewards will be greater, right? Song explains to the group that the dungeon gate will only close when the boss of the second dungeon is defeated. Normally, yes, they should report this to the Hunters Association and wait for a decision. But that would mean other hunters could come and steal the boss. He decides to let everyone vote on whether or not to face the second dungeon. In total, there are 13 members, half say yes and the other half say no. Jinwoo will be the one to decide the group's fate with his vote. Jinwoo thinks that this dungeon is too dangerous for him, but he is out of money and needs to find a way to send his sister to college. Moreover, he needs to pay for his mother's treatment to protect his family. Therefore, he decides to say yes. Meanwhile, we see some people at the Hunters Association taking the awakening test as hunters. A man places his hand on a black magic core and his strength is measured. We find out that there are several guilds that recruit hunters with potential and train them to conduct raids in dungeons. The strongest hunter in the country, Reen, is the vice leader of one of these guilds. She is a beautiful blonde of S-class. Back in the dungeon, some members think they have gone too far. They have already been there for 40 minutes and mention that they have 1 hour to exit the dungeon after defeating the boss. So they have about 20 minutes to act. Jinwoo takes the opportunity to apologize to Juhee. She asks why, and he explains that it was because of him that they were forced to stay and defeat the second boss. Juhee says it's fine and that he doesn't need to worry about her. He asks if she's sure, but she says she's angry. She yells at him, asking if he's crazy, explaining that he had a hole in his chest and that if it had been a little higher, his arms and legs would have been cut off. She also mentions that her Class B healing abilities barely managed to heal him. She calls him reckless and asks why he agreed to come. She also asks if he hurt his head and demands an answer. Jinwoo apologizes and thinks to himself that he's still alive because Juhee is a Class B healer. If it weren't for her, he would be dead. She asks if he truly regrets it and he confirms. Suddenly, she flirts with him, saying that he should reward himself with a dinner. Jinwoo is confused, but she gets annoyed and asks if he doesn't want to spend time with her. Jinwoo blushes and explains that she's not part of his game, but he would love to spend time with her. Suddenly, someone mentions that they've reached the boss room. Some members are confused because they've never seen a boss room with a door. They find it strange, but Kim asks if they're going to return empty-handed after coming this far. He states that they might be the first to discover the new dungeon. If they want to go back, they can, but he will go alone. Meanwhile, we see the president of the Hunters Association giving a brief explanation about how they should always be careful and survive, even at their high ranks. They open the door and enter. The torches light up in the hall as they enter. Some are impressed, because they've never seen a room like that. They hurry and start looking at each other. The group sees several statues scattered around the hall, and Jinwoo notices a larger one, apparently on a throne. Jinwoo thinks it's the largest statue, but the group starts to realize they are being watched. Then something strange happens. There are no monsters in the room. Song observes the floor and sees a magic circle, which calls Song and mentions a statue with an inscription. Everyone approaches the angelic statue and notices the inscription. Song reads aloud and mentions that they are the commandments of the Katynian temple. First, worship God. Second, praise God. Third, believe in God. And whoever does not obey must die. Juhee becomes furious and yells at Jinwoo because the eyes of the giant statue moved and looked at her. Jinwoo is confused and says that she is imagining things. Suddenly the door closes and everyone panics, thinking they are trapped. One of the members approaches the door and complains that he didn't want to be there. He touches the door and suddenly a statue moves and cuts off his head. Everyone is in shock and starts screaming. Woo is desperate and thinks about the level of the dead man. He knows that the man was much stronger than him. The statue, however, returns to its original position. Jinwoo still can't move, as the man was killed in an instant. He doesn't understand how this monster could be in a low-level dungeon. Jinwoo observes the larger statue piece and notes every detail until he sees its eyes moving to look at him. Jinwoo begins to recall the moments when he was in danger, like during his first incursion, when he was separated from the team and injured by E-class monsters, which caused him to spend weeks in the hospital. Later, he almost starved to death when he got trapped in a labyrinth. He explains that hunters spend the money they earn from magic cores to buy better weapons and defeat stronger monsters. But he always only had enough money to buy cheap butter knives. When the knives broke, he was forced to fight the monsters with his fists. He never had money for clothes, but he continued anyway. He never made much money and was always mocked by the other hunters. That's why he was always looking for ways to survive. He needed to observe everything closely to find his chance. When he returns to reality, Jinwoo tells everyone to lie down. The statue fires a laser beam from its eyes and kills several hunters. Those who survived are in shock from the scene and panic. Fortunately, Jinwoo manages to save Juhee, but she is in panic. He looks around confused and wonders what is happening and how they got there. He knows they are trapped and cannot escape. Finally, he goes mad, as he knows everyone is going to die. The episode begins with the group members completely terrified in front of an imposing statue that watches them with a merciless gaze. The atmosphere of despair is palpable, as they have already lost 2 members and know that any false move could mean the death of everyone. Everyone is at the mercy of the statue, which is ready to attack at any moment. Junhee, demotivated, had already abandoned any hope, but Sung's keen perception was what saved him from a fatal fate. Sung managed to notice something that the others hadn't, and if he hadn't acted, they would all be dead by now. During the attacks, Sung lost his arm and immediately began to stop the bleeding, but Junhee was so scared that she couldn't do anything. Sung, with his experience and knowledge about the situation, believed that the statue was rank A or even S, a level of power that would require exceptional skills to be defeated. In front of them, the statue displayed the temple's commandments, inscribed clearly and imposingly. Worship God, praise God, and prove your faith to God. Sung quickly deduced that the statue itself represented this divine entity. 10 years ago, mysterious portals began to appear, linking the real world to an alternate dimension. The magical energy from these portals spread across the world, granting some people special powers, allowing them to fight against the monsters that emerged from these portals. These warriors were called hunters. However, once a hunter awakened their powers, their rank would remain fixed and unchangeable forever. Meanwhile, the story takes us to a classroom where Sung's sister is in college, aware that her brother works as a hunter, being the weakest of them all. She worries about Sung's health, as he constantly gets injured in battles. Her friend believes she can also become a hunter and fight alongside Sung. Back at the temple, the group continues searching for an exit. At one point, a hunter decides to use his ability to try to leap to the door, hoping to escape. But as soon as he gains momentum, the statue launches a powerful attack, completely pulverizing him. The only trace of the hunter left are his shoes. This tragic event causes total panic among the survivors. The sudden death of one of the strongest hunters leaves everyone in shock. Sung, on the other hand, begins to reflect on what is happening and tries to understand why the statue hasn't attacked the group until that moment. Based on the commandments, he believes that the statue follows a specific pattern or mechanic. He approaches the statue and, as he stands up, the statue begins to charge a new attack. Sung, with agility, quickly bows and the attack is interrupted. He realizes that as long as everyone keeps their heads bowed in reverence to the statue, it will not attack them. Sung then orders everyone to bow before the statue, and they all begin to bow in unison. However, something unexpected happens. The statue smiles malevolently, and an overwhelming pressure begins to spread throughout the environment, terrifying the group even more. Amidst this moment of apparent safety, a hunter stands up, believing they were finally free from danger. But suddenly, the statue enters its second phase. It rises and begins to walk towards them, as if ready to crush everyone under its feet. Sung quickly realizes that the statue's second phase requires them to worship the statue. A hunter, in an attempt to follow this order, starts to pray in front of it, but Sung quickly realizes that he is praying to the wrong god. When the statue realizes this, it smiles in an even more menacing way and with a brutal movement steps on the hunter, crushing him completely. A huntress, overcome by panic, is unable to move and is also crushed by the statue. At this moment, the group splits up, trying to distract the statue and hide in different directions. During the escape, one of the members, who had family outside the temple, ends up being cut in half by the statue that attacks him relentlessly. Sung, who is still trying to understand what is missing to unravel the second commandment, knows he cannot leave Junhee alone, so he begins to carefully analyze the patterns of the statues. He notices that some statues have instruments, and then instructs everyone to run towards a statue that has one of these instruments. When one of the hunters approaches, the statue begins to play. With that, they disperse in search of other statues with instruments. Sung runs with Junhee to a statue, but soon realizes that it won't work with 2 people together. Then he decides to leave her and head towards another statue. However, the giant statue begins to pursue him relentlessly, until he accidentally approaches a shield statue that brutally tears off his leg. Even in a critical state, Sung does not give up and starts crawling towards the statue with the instrument. At the last second, when the statue is about to crush him, Sung manages to activate it. The statue begins to play, and Sung finally understands that the second phase consists of praising God. With that, the statue returns to its place, but the third commandment is still missing to complete the cycle. With the loss of his leg, Sung is already in a very weakened physical state, but Junhee, although she tries to help him, is also exhausted. The situation becomes increasingly desperate, and then the statue summons a sacrificial altar. Sung, knowing what needs to be done, understands that someone must sacrifice themselves to allow the others to survive. The leader of the group decides that he will be the one to sacrifice himself, but as he approaches the altar, a flame ignites and Sung, with the help of other hunters, manages to reach the altar. 4 torches light up, 1 for each person in the circle. Sung realizes that 7 days have already passed since the temple opened, and that if they do not defeat the monsters, the real world will be invaded. If the statue manages to leave the temple, the real world will be doomed. In a moment of reflection, the episode reveals Sung's sister visiting their debilitated mother in the hospital while Sung continues his mission. He asks everyone to enter the sacrifice circle, and with that, all the torches light up and a blue flame appears, opening the temple door. However, the statues begin to move towards the group, initiating the third phase of the boss. Sung realizes that to prevent the statues from advancing, they must not look away from them. If they look at the statue, it will stop moving, but they cannot take their eyes off it. A panicked hunter decides to flee the temple and manages to escape, but the door starts to close partially. As more people leave, the door closes more quickly. Sung believes that all of this is a trap, but the group leader, who did not want to sacrifice himself, also runs outside. The statues, now more furious, become increasingly difficult to control. In the end, the leader decides to sacrifice himself to save the others, but Sung, who cannot walk to the exit, and Junhee, who is too weak to move, decide to stay behind. Sung hands the stone he had obtained to Junhee with the promise that he would take her to eat something, but he knows he won't be able to fulfill that promise. The episode reaches its climax, with Sung being brutally attacked by the statues. With each blow he receives, a part of his body is torn off, but he continues fighting for survival. He is thrown onto the sacrificial altar, and when he is on the brink of death, a panel opens before him. The courage of the weak is unlocked, and Sung is invited to become a player. The episode ends in an exciting and mysterious way, leaving the audience eager for the next step in Sung's journey. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel to watch anime summaries. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video. Until then.